So this is Silverwood Properties listing. In this listing, on the star, you see Landa Street. You see Anonymous Architects building that Richard Judson takes credit for. The building next to it is My Foam Fang and Ben Bolton. This three houses you see. Oh, that's another view. So there's Anonymous Architects and then the two other houses beyond it. The two beyond it are part of an easement lawsuit. This is these doctors that are sort of famous from COVID that do a transfer during the time of this being built, so they could be built without the assessment being done as owner builder and then transferred back to the doctors somehow with the means to you do a swap, I believe, 1031 tax deferred exchange swap. So, and that way they could keep the money from the capital gains and continue to grow the amount of money that they were making off the whole incidental property. This right here is their next attempt at a swap. Now, I can't guarantee which piece it is they're going to try to swap, but I can try. And what I can try to say is that I think it is going to be 1968 Avon, aka 1410 Ewing, for 1645 Landa. But what has happened more importantly is that the trash that you see abandoned here is still there, and the incidental trash is, it's about to switch, is seen here. This material, first of all, is a wall built by Resourceful Construction without the proper building and engineering requirements. They just build as they feel like it without actually getting building and engineering to sign off on documents. I would say this retaining wall would fail within a year due to the fact that it's not strong enough to support this kind of hill. It's already from its own weight coming down. It's more than a 30% grade in which sand already begins to slide at anything over 30%. But what's more troubling is that all this material that's just abandoned here ends up being dumped and abandoned at 1958 Avon in the hillside after they dig up a pool permit. They get a pool permit. They dig a hole, right? After they dig the hole, they bury the trash. Then after they bury the trash, they bring in a pile driver without a permit for a haul route, and they smash the shit out of it. And in that, they smash and hide all the silica dust, destroy specific trees that are historic and protected, like black walnut and Mexican elderberry and whatnot. They take all this excavated, cut back. What do they call that? Lot cut, hit cut back. I don't know what they call it, but they take all the excavated dirt, silica dust from cement, and so on, and they bring it over in dumpster and they just dump it into this hole that they've gotten a pool permit for. And then they retract the pool permit and say, oh, never mind, I don't want to put a pool in. And they do this over and over throughout the year. Secondly, this house is a Simon Story Anonymous Architecture build, but Richard Judson Williams, Resourceful Construction, Resourceful Development. Resourceful Construction is only created because Resourceful Development loses its license, its contractor's license, because it fails to pay employment insurance. And it then gets sued by the State Insurance Compensation Fund and loses a $200,000 plus suit. They don't pay their damages that they're required to, and then they get tax liens, FTB, whatnot, state tax, federal tax, imposed upon their company and business and properties which they don't disclose totally. So they declare a bankruptcy, but then they go take out PPP loans for $100,000, stating they have 16 people. But their employment insurance scam suit was stating they have no employees, and they stood by it wholeheartedly while they were still sued for the 14 plus that they were assumed as having. They never changed their story, and they held to their testimony to the very bitter end, and to the point of it. Chenny Shapiro, the husband or the wife of Richard, quitting her company so that she wasn't on the records, because they were about to commit bankruptcy fraud, because that's when they declared bankruptcy to avoid their judgment against them. So to get the contractor's license back, because it was revoked, Richard goes in and places a extension on filing for his FTB lien for till 2025. So till 2025, he has a lien extension for the amount of money that he owes, stating he will pay. But the thing is now he gets his contractor's license back because he's going to supposedly pay the judgment. But he still said that he doesn't owe the money, and he declared bankruptcy and didn't disclose the assets. Meanwhile, he took out a mortgage with Quicken after he already had a mortgage with Landsman Investment. The Landsman Investment mortgage was for $505,000. The one with Quicken was for $295,000. Now the one was I need to double check that one, but either way, that one's for a lot. And took out a third loan by having a company employee take out a $295,000 loan to take out another mortgage on a house that they gave him for free. So they paid for it for $505,000, but supposedly with a 10% down payment on the, on the property, it would actually be 505, so 720, so it'd be 175. So $175,000 would have been required to get the down payment on my house. So, but Chenny Shapiro declares that she, in her money, because she's the 401k trust, Chenny Shapiro 401k trust, that takes my property, that she pays, 10%. So let me ask real quick, Google. Okay, Google, what is 4% of 720,000?
4% of 720,000 is 28,800.
28,800. Okay, Google. Okay, Google, what is 10% of 720?
10% of 70 is 7.
Okay, Google, what is 10% of 720,000? Okay, Google, what is 10% of 720,000?
10% of 720,000 is 72,000.
Okay. So if it was 72,000, it's one thing. If it was... Okay, well, what is 4% of 720,000?
4% of 720,000 is 28,800.
Okay, Chenny Shapiro says her yearly income is $39,000 after deductions from her property, from depreciation, and from money spent on maintaining her resources that would be expenses that are write-offs. She only has a $39,000 income, and that her property's assets aren't taxable, and she only has one property or something like that. Or two properties, which we know is not true. A woman has bought over 45 properties in less than 2007 to less than 14 years. She's bought over 40 some properties. Here we go, rolling on one. She's had a 401k since January 1, 2001. Sorry, 2011. Supposedly, that's where she keeps her assets. All of them. They've all been in the Chenny Shapiro 401k trust. Never in her name directly. The 401k trust EIN goes to Robert Hall and Associates, which is not disclosed, and it's only can be sourced if you look for it carefully. The phone number on the EIN goes to the Robert Hall and Associates personal phone number. So one would assume that that's Robert Hall and Associates. Furthermore, what is Jenny Shapiro trying to do by moving properties in and out of 401k? Well, her father really likes 1031 tax-deferred exchange plans, and they really seem to enjoy tenancy in common developments into condominiums. And they really like to do this to multi-unit properties, into hillside properties, ones that they can subdivide, make many parcels out of none. So what I see here is that because of COVID, the 180-day extension for like-kind properties in a 1031 tax-deferred exchange have been extended for all kinds of situations to an ungodly amount of time, not ever seen before. My house sold March 6th, 2020, is originally intended to be a 1031 tax-deferred exchange in their scam in which they commit mortgage, MARTA, Market Act Recordability, Title Act, whatever, fraud, and it got gummed up by the fact that I've been here over 5 years and have right to it through an adverse possession claim that is legitimate, and they have no claim to it because what they did was buy a lien on the title from a faulty transfer from Lending Home, who did not have standing to sell it because they bifurcated the deed and the mortgage and the note when they obfuscated who to contact, violating the California Mortgage Protection Act. And then they, without a substitution trustee, transfer it to Quality Loan Service when it was in First American Title Insurance's name to be the trustee. And then furthermore, transfer it from that to themselves in a quitclaim when they said they were going to buy it at the auction, and they did not. They just gave it to themselves. And then it's for cash transaction, and then there was no cash transaction. It was just for debt that they said they were owed. And then they transfer it back to themselves after they supposedly buy it with the supposed cash that they don't actually spend to sell it for a profit to Wellington Savings Trust, FSB, Christian Trust, and NRP Trust 1, which is just 3 other entities that are used to house things for Lending Home, to house real estate, and to break it up into 3 pieces so that it's unreachable by communications and fragmented and impossible to get in touch with. I contact the legal department of Quality Loan Service, tell them that they can't have the sale, that I've already been here, that I have right to, that I have possession, and they say, haha, we can do whatever we want. We don't give a shit about you. I contacted the owner of record in the first place during the 5 years prior many a time, and he had abandoned the place wholeheartedly because he was a straw buyer who was actually just using the place as a property to hijack a mortgage from, and he had done this 5 other times with Lending Home, so Lending Home had every reason to know that this wasn't an idea that they should back and that they should be involved in, and they just committed this sin anyway because Lending Home doesn't give a shit about what they do. They just do it because the more loans they can get out there, the better for them. It's just they want foreclosure. It's an insight that most people aren't aware of, is that foreclosure is part of the industry of giving out loans because they can appreciate the value on the default, and then without going into default, they can take your land, give themselves the full payout through the title insurance, and then resell it again in a trustee's deed. However, if they quitclaim the deed before that, like they did to Quality Loan, and then to themselves, and then to their own trust, the William Savings Trust of FSB, NRP Trust 1, and Christiana Trust, not in its full capacity, but as sole certificate holder, then the trifecta entity that they did that to is the bifurcation of the mortgage and the abandonment of the mortgage's note on the deed, and that doesn't count anymore. And by then, my inverse possession of the multi-year process, I am specifically guaranteed my prescriptive right, and I am the possessors of the property. So I have my claim of right is based on their faulty color of title. So they don't have the standing to actually sell the property to Cheney Shapiro, and then that deed of trust, which is now a grant deed, does not actually issue a grant deed. It still only has the face value of the quit claim, which is something that's not warranted and cannot guarantee itself. Nor does Charles Boone and Associates and Cindy Moss, the notary, issue any statement other than that this is not actually validating the location of the property or any of the truthfulness of the claim, and that violates the law firm who creates the documents requirement to Rule 11 to, willfully make sure that this isn't a misrepresentation and that the due diligence has been done to make sure that this property is an accurate representation of what it is to be sold, so thereby violating their ethics committee commitment. So I'm also guaranteed my home's proper play in the game of life if it was that I was to be obfuscated of my right as an adverse possessor, but I can't be. It's the law, and through the patent law, the common law of the law is king, that I have a right to adverse possession due to my right as a human being here on earth to adversely possess a property that is abandoned. I successfully navigated it for this long time without being deposed of my property. I've now built a new home for myself, my life, my wife, and that is every last bit more proper than anything else I have done. Open, notorious, continuous, exclusive, and hostile. And I've fenced it. I've unfenced it to make it open to the neighborhood to see what we're doing, which is notorious. I've refenced it in numerous ways. I've cultivated the land heavily. I have over 700,000 seeds of plants of overseeding being my favorite method. I have single-handedly terraced the entire hillside. I've regrown the plants over 3 or 4 times from top to bottom of the hillside. I've resided the house. I've rebuilt the interior from top to bottom. I've gotten a washer and dryer. I've reinstalled a new hot water heater from scratch, from moving one off the property and another one on. I've done a complete interior remodel of the paneling, removing all of the plaster and installing cedar wood paneling through and throughout. I've planed all the floors. I've redone the bathroom, removing a 500-pound beehive. I've removed the rats, the mice, the termites. I have begun replacing the roof, getting a roof builder to come in with Tesla to do a solar installation. I've gotten a new electrical panel. I've gotten new water piping. I've gotten a new mailbox for the place that was over $500 from Japan. I put in all redwood on the exterior. I've replaced windows. I've installed insulation. I've installed entirely a Japanese interior to the house. I've built custom built-in bookcases and built-in televisions and all up-to-date USB plug wall switches and light switches that light up, and 2 different new stove setups that I'm in, a new sink, reverse osmosis water system, new taps, new electrical, custom lamps, custom light switches, light switch covers, custom door handles, custom locks that are Wi-Fi and smart, all custom interior lighting, custom built-in furniture, all personally, all tatami mat floor, built a staircase in my second story, rebuilt it, sanded and planed every surface in the entire house, removed all the junk that was here in the first place, cleaned up the entire property, removed 200,000 pounds of jade plant, chopped and mulched every square inch of 8,000 square feet of property on a hillside, and then re-terraced the entire thing. Built 3 different fences that have been destroyed by this contractor, Richard Judson Williams. Hired an architect, made plans, completed the LA Yard program, So what I'm telling you is that this is my home, not theirs. And if they want to do a 1031 tax-deferred exchange for 690,900, they better fucking think again, because what they're doing is appraisal fraud on a property flip that's not theirs, and it's Ellis acted in the first place, and it's in REAP, and they had their lawyer illegally remove it from REAP by using her family member Tony and Carlos Pelez, who are both the custodian of records and the head of the REAP program in HCDILA, and Miss Jacqueline Grace Pelez is using her family to commit great crimes in the city of Los Angeles as HCDILA, and she is a lawyer, and she should be disbarred, and they should be fired from their job immediately for internal corruption. My house had never been inspected and has never been viewed in the last 7 years or so, and yet it still says that different inspectors came during COVID when no one was coming at all. I have video specifically showing otherwise. In fact, I have video of these inspectors basically getting bribed and then hiding around the corner and not doing their job at all because they don't want to go inspect a broken septic system. They don't want to go inspect broken things when they're getting paid not to. And this is hand in hand with the corruption of District 14 that was happening in the same year, basically. District 13 is no better. Thomas Reichman is the only ACDLA LADVS inspector I've met that is not corrupt so far. Every other one has been a corrupt asshole. You name it. AJ Collet in particular, most corrupt permit expediter in all of LADVS. That lady should be 150 by the time something happens to her. She seemingly just keeps her job for an eternity, but she's responsible for every single illegal permit taken out on my house and every other house around here for that matter. But my house, I know, has illegal permits on it because it can't be taken out because it's in REAP and it's in Ellis Act status, and therefore when you go to LADVS, it says you can't take any of these building permits out. There are restrictions on it. So what does Resourceful Construction do? They take out permits in a different APN 541500917. That's expired 7 or 8 years ago. It's now 039. But Richard does it in that number because it still allows him to at LADVS because they don't have the system worked out perfectly. And he hand enters it and goes to the wrong office, and they specifically don't have our house on file, but they can pull it up. And they can pull it up under the old APN because they don't have their records all on the line. And then they give him the permits. So he's able to take out permits that aren't for his house, that aren't for fucking work that he can legally do, and allows him to illegally pursue going forward, which is a massive violation. And doing this without a contractor's license. And then using people as shell companies to hold the house to get owner-builder status. He's a fucking lying piece of shit, and he's got 3 DUIs.